So, how to prevent 3 out of 4 money worries. Over 70% of us worry about money, but there are 4 different types or time frames. The first is urgent, then there's short-term, occasional, and long-term. The one we can't prevent is the urgent, giant hole of debt that's swallowing someone's lives. That needs professional help and assistance from family and anywhere it can be found, and it needs to be acknowledged and fixed. That's not what the video is about. It's about the other 3. So the first of those 3 is the short-term money worries. The short-term money worry is when we've got a sudden increase in expenses or drop in incomes, and of course we've seen a lot of that at the moment with COVID-19. But it also occurs when someone gets retrenched from their job, or even just going on maternity leave. 86% of Australians don't know what their expenses are. They just know that they're earning enough and everything seems to get covered. But that means that if what they're earning drops, then suddenly there's stress and anxiety about, is it going to be enough to cover the living expenses? Now, the next type is the occasional money worries. And this is when we're not sure if there's enough money. Is there enough money in the account to cover the next credit card bill? Or we've got a direct debit coming out that we're not sure, did we spend too much this month? Or maybe there's 2 of us spending from the same account and one of us thought they'd left enough and the other one didn't, and we start to get a bit anxious. My wife and I used to suffer from this when we did all of our banking with one bank account, and we always felt a bit anxious and unsure about could we spend the money or not, and ultimately actually caused tension and stress in the relationship. The long-term worry is about how we'll provide for our future, or where we are relative to our peers, or relative to where we think we ought to be. Now, Viv and Sam had got in the habit of spending most of their income. They tried to save what was left over each pay cycle, but it seemed that as the savings get built up, then they spend them again on something like a holiday, or car rego, or Christmas, or some other unexpected expense. As their careers progressed, their incomes increased substantially, but their savings barely moved. It just seemed that the more they earned, the more they spent. Now, in Australia, savings rate has dropped to only 3% from a long-term average of around 10%. And yet we know that around 20% is required to provide for a long and happy retirement. So how can we prevent these last 3 money worries? The short-term worry can be dissipated when we know our numbers. When Sam became pregnant, Viv and Sam started out by using a budget tool and figuring out the difference between their basic living expenses and their discretionary or variable spending amount. Instantly felt at ease when they realized that they could comfortably still cover their basic living costs. And what we found in dealing with lots of people over a long period of time is that when we ask people how much they're spending and then we look at what they're actually spending, the gap is around 30%. And that actually means that our income can drop by 30% and still cover the basics. The occasional money worries are most often caused by structural issue with our bank accounts and the way the money flows. When Viv and Sam separated out their bills from their everyday spending, again, they found it much easier to know that the bills were always going to get paid and taken care of, and what was in their everyday account was okay to spend without impacting on the bill. The long-term money worry is normally caused because we don't set aside 20% of our income, and because we only have one savings account. Viv and Sam found it much easier to separate their savings into future long-term savings, medium-term savings for things like holidays, and then short-term savings for fun things like gifts and gadgets. We call this separation of accounts our 5-2 money diet, which you can find at five2moneydiet.com. So what money worries keep you up at night? Please post in the comments or send us a private message to share your thoughts.